All right, we are back. This is, I don't even know what number episode now. I want to say like 13, 14, 15, somewhere in that range of the What's Your Hustle podcast. I have Connor with me. I'll let you introduce yourself because I feel like you are up to par with talking, and I'll let you explain why to give that suspense. So go ahead and let her rip.
Cool. Pretty much, like you said, my name's Connor Williams. This is actually our first time meeting, so
yes.
I might as well just fill you in.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm from Winchester, pretty much. That's what I say because I've lived in Martinsburg my whole life.
Fair enough.
But I was born in Winchester at the Winchester Hospital, but pretty much, run amok in this whole area my whole life. And then 2013, I decided to join the military. So left here for a while. I was stationed out in San Diego. Decided to come back here, start a family. This is where my wife and I's family, is pretty much from.
Yeah.
So her and I've been married like 10 years now. Well, not like 10 years. Great. She's going to see this. It's been 10 years.
Yeah.
It's been 10
you might want to
years.
get that right.
Yes. Nailed it. But yeah, so we moved back here, started a family, bought a home, all that fun stuff. And then, yeah, so pretty much that whole time, stand-up comedy had been brewing in my life. And almost 2 years ago now, went to an open mic night, tried out some jokes for the first time, absolutely loved it, kept rocking and rolling with it. 2 years later now, I'm producing shows all around the area with another comedian and doing shows, producing shows, having a blast, all that good stuff. So here I am now, chatting with your fine self and trying to, spread the good word.
Yeah.
Much, yeah.
No, that's, I guess the number one question you probably get is, have you always been funny or have you always been a jokester?
Yeah. I definitely was always like, when I was a little kid, I was always doing impersonations or like entertaining my parents. And
the class clown.
When I got to school, it was definitely like making people laugh first, and then I was worried about school later, you know what I mean? But
rightfully so.
Yeah. I got runner-up for class clown, so that definitely kind of hurt. But I think there was another guy who was like triple jointed, so he kind of had like the upper hand.
In
on
elementary
me,
school, that's something where people are like, "That's gross," but that's so cool.
Yeah. It beats one-liners. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I always enjoyed like making people laugh, and I knew when I was laughing, I really wasn't worried about, all the other stuff going on in life. So, when I got out of the military, I was doing HVAC work in San Diego, and I started listening to like Joe Rogan and all those comedy podcasts, and I'd always been a fan of stand-up. Like my dad had watched like Steve Martin and Robin Williams and all those guys on TV, so I grew up watching like Whose Line Is It Anyway, which was, like a whole different type of comedy. Did you watch that growing up too?
Oh yeah. So it's funny. So growing up, I always was like, oh, this show again. And like, I would change the channel. And then once I took a second and actually watched the show, I was like, this is hilarious. Like, what have I been doing my entire life? Cause it's one of those, it's been on, I'm pretty sure it's still on. The cast has probably changed up a little bit,
or maybe touring now. Whoever it is now is doing like a full on tour.
Yeah, and it's definitely, it was one of those where it was like, yeah, this is hilarious. Like the skits, the kind of on your feet,
the wackiness of it.
Yeah,
and that was like something that I was always kind of had an affinity for too. Like Jim Carrey movies were always like my number one. So I was just always super wacky guy. But yeah, once I started listening to these comedy podcasts, it just started like growing in my mind, I guess, that it could like actually be a possibility to do stand up. But that was like, I worked that job for several years, went to school, moved back here, started a family. So it was like 7 years of this thing like brewing in my mind, between the time of me getting out of the Navy, thinking about it, and then actually doing it. It was like a 7-year time span. But yeah, like I said, I went to an open mic night for the first time. It was like a sort of like a cannabis club type thing.
Sure.
You like pay an entry fee, and they got all the accoutrements, and And then they had a stage with a microphone. So I was like, I thought it'd be a good place to go where I wouldn't see anybody that I knew and I could try it. And so I went up there and like told some stories and did some jokes that I had, some jokes that I had written down. Finished up, went in the bathroom, and my legs were just like, my whole body was just,
freaking out. Yeah. The adrenaline.
Full of energy.
Yeah.
But after that, I was kind of just in love with the idea of it. So started searching out like open mic nights in the area, and it was pretty much just like music open mic nights, like guys playing acoustic guitar and singing, or like the Blue Fox here in Winchester had a cool one where like a lot of local bands and musicians would go up and play songs and stuff. And then I would sign up, and pretty much, in between somebody playing Eric Clapton or something, I'm on my like second or third time trying stand up, trying to make people laugh, and they're just not
we
having
want music.
it. Yeah, not having it, not expecting it, not having it. I didn't have the jokes. I was just up there like nervous as crap, just trying to get comfortable, I guess. So I kept doing these like local music open mic nights, and I feel like now when I think back, it might have been like beneficial for me. You know what I mean? Like just struggling for laughter.
Throw yourselves to the wolves. Yeah.
But then I started like finding real comedy open mic nights, but those were like an hour and a half away, like Frederick, Maryland, or down toward DC, that area. But started going to those, started meeting comedians and figuring out what was funny and what worked and what wasn't. And so I guess to kind of preface this, what really kind of like solidified me jumping into comedy head first was I noticed that a local barbecue shop in Martinsburg was hosting a comedy show. It was like a free comedy show, local comedians kind of thing. So me and my pops went, great show, whatever. And that was kind of like where I saw that a amateur comedian, I guess, or not like a Bill Burr or somebody could kind of just pop up somewhere, do jokes, set up sound and a microphone, and have a show. And so I started talking to this guy who put on the show, and that's who kind of pushed me into trying it out for the first time and gave me some advice and stuff. And fast forward, that's the guy who I'm producing shows with now, Ace Jackson. He's out of Virginia, and he's been doing comedy for like 7, probably 8 years now. But yeah, just kind of like took me under his wing, kept giving me advice, and then he put me on a show, one of his shows that he was having in Martinsburg. So that was like my first time going from doing open mic comedy to actually being on a show. Okay. And so I put it on like Facebook, kind of like my coming out of the closet of comedy,
Yeah.
Because before then I didn't like tell anybody or post anything
it was just
that I was.
Did
behind closed doors. Yeah. And so yeah, I put it out there that I was doing a show, and I ended up having like 30 or 40 local folks, like people that I went to high school with, like some people in my family came out to the show, and that's where I kind of like hit the ground running and just kept, going with it. So
build from there.
Yeah, dude, it's been wild. It's been a super cool experience, but it's definitely like, I feel like is my passion, you know what I mean? And it's a good way to kind of like disconnect from all the noise of life, if you will.
Yeah. No, and it sounds like, so you do stand-up comedy shows. But you help produce shows as well. I know we were talking a little bit before the camera started rolling. You have a comedy production company business.
Yep.
How does that work?
So that gentleman, Ace Jackson, that put on the show, that first show that I went to at the barbecue spot, he was pretty much doing that solo under Ace Comedy. And, we started talking back and forth, and I started to see, I guess, what it took to produce shows. And I started looking at some other people in the area that produce shows. And especially around here, I noticed that nobody was doing shows. So I thought it would be something that I could really, build up and bring to the area and bring live comedy to the area. So I started hitting up different venues, Winchester, Martinsburg, Hagerstown, and didn't get the most resounding response that I thought I would. A lot of places either, just said, no, we don't want to do comedy, or, we're just hesitant to the idea because they were used to having, music nights, bingo nights, things like that.
It's different.
It is. But I just started, kind of looking at it from more of a business aspect, and, trying to, I guess, bring a more professional feel to it and try to sell it, as instead of just, it just being a one-time pop-up thing. So we started Black and White Comedy Productions. It would kind of make more sense if he was here. I'm a white guy. He's a black guy.
I see the connection.
It took hours and hours of us, sitting across from each other and trying to nail down a name. But no, it was just kind of like one of those things where I thought of it and I texted him. I was like, is this too on the nose?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I think it's cool. I'm like, all right. And we ran with it. And it kind of just became like, every comedian has a joke about it on the show. And it just kind of became like its own little brand, I guess. So, we just kind of ran with it. And we've done some shows locally, but like I said, it's just kind of tough to break that wall of what venue owners are used to putting out there and what people are used to seeing. So, like I said, we've had some successful shows in the area. We've had some success down in like Manassas type area. We have a place that we do like a weekly comedy open mic night. So pretty much set up the stage, sound equipment, backdrop, and put out a list, and comedians from all around the area come. And sometimes it's like first timers. Sometimes it's veterans that, perform at the DC Improv regularly, and everybody in between. So that's probably been like one of the coolest things that I've been able to do on the production side, I guess, is allow other comics to, take the stage and do their thing. But then we also do shows there once a month. So we'll book like some of those, like I said, 20-year veterans, like the people who...
The people that have a little bit of a resume behind.
Sure. Credits and resume. They've toured the country and performed on big shows. Headliners is what we call them. So we'll do shows like that, and those are super fun because I'm kind of like the MC, I guess. So I'll get to go up there and like do my set at the beginning and crack some jokes, but then I'll go up and kind of intro each comedian as they're coming up. So I get to kind of be like the hype man.
Sure.
And that's where I've kind of like found my niche on stage on the production side. So it was just kind of like something that I saw that I might have in addition to comedy that I might be, have an affinity for. So, I've definitely enjoyed the production side as well as the performance side.
Yeah, it sounds like you're, I don't want to say monetizing because it's it's an aggressive way of saying, I think a lot of times people hear monetize and they're like, oh, you're just trying to make money off of it. But in the real world, if it's something that you enjoy doing and you want to do it more than working somewhere else and doing whatever, you have to find a way to monetize.
Yeah.
So that way you can, you could do it you would do it for free if you could, but the way the world works is that's very difficult to do.
Well, and that's something that I learned kind of quickly is that, when I started, I guess one of those things I always told myself was that like, if somebody paid me in gummy bears doing comedy, like it would be, a dream come true. Like I couldn't imagine making a penny just going up there and cracking jokes. And the first open mic night, or the first time I ever got paid was at like an open mic night. It was a paid open mic night.
Sure.
And the host sent me $7.75 after the open mic night through Venmo. And I was like, I'm going to print out this Venmo receipt and put it on the wall. Like, when you make your first dollar in your business.
You made 7 of them in the first.
So I was like, how is he, is he just paying people out of his own pocket? So I started like digging into the business side of producing comedy shows. And I realized that it's like any other business. You know what I mean? Like you're providing a product, a service, you know what I mean? You're helping a business bring in customers to their establishment. So it's not something that you can really do for free. You know what I mean? You need equipment, you need to get to the shows, you need, production materials, all that kind of stuff.
Marketing,
Exactly.
the whole nine. Yeah.
Yeah. So now that I'm producing shows, I'll have like folks come to me that want to do the same thing, and they'll kind of want to just, pop up at a bar that, they're familiar with, and, tell the venue owner, hey, we just want to do a show here. We want to have a place to perform. And they won't, ask the venue owner for, either if it's a free show, you want to ask the venue owner for a flat rate so you can pay the comedians, or you do a ticketed show so that you can keep the commissions from the tickets and pay the comedians. But a lot of people think that, you're kind of doing a service to the venue owner by asking if you can do the show there for free. But in reality, it's kind of like undercutting any other business. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
If, I would have cut your yard for $25 for a month, and then, the next month I say, hey man, it's going to have to be 75 going forward. That would be kind of like a little bit of a gut punch for you. And you'd be like, well, you're doing the same job. Why are you charging me 75 now?
Yeah.
Well, if we do a comedy show and we don't charge the venue owner anything, and say it's a crappy show and they don't want to do it anymore, the next person that wants to come in and do a show, if they ask the venue owner, say, hey, we want this much to do the show, they'll say, well, the last guy wasn't asking for anything. You know what I mean? Regardless if it was a good show, bad show.
That's now the standard.
Exactly.
So in our line of work, in video production, we see that a lot is, I've had somebody reach out to me and they're like, hey, we want you to can you re-edit this? And I have no problem helping. And, that's been the start of a lot of networked relationships that I've built, is kind of helping out in a tough spot.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of put me in the door
Yeah.
to work with them. But a lot of that, it's, it's a double-edged sword, you help, but then, when it's time to work on something else or do another project or whatever, they're still kind of have that perceived idea of what the previous person charged. And, there's a value to everything. Just because, you as Joe Schmo, whoever, you don't see that value, or as a business owner, you're like, no, that's way expensive. Well, that's might be too expensive to you, but there is a value to everything, right? And you can't undercut your own value. What is your time worth? What is the effort of putting all this, time and effort into making it the best show that it can be? What is the value of that in your eyes? And then that's what you're charging.
Exactly.
So like there is it's not just a random number you're pulling, right? Hopefully, I mean, it might be, who knows? But it's what kind of sounds nice today?
Right.
No. Usually it's based off of metrics, right? You have some sort of like, hey, this is the cost to put it, and then the ROI, or what I get out of it, is X, right? And is it worth doing? Because there's some projects when I was first starting out where by the time everything got done, re-edits and everything, I was like, I didn't make anything off of this because of the time and effort. And then you kind of learn as you go, like, okay, this is why. It's easy to come in, and I'm speaking from a videography standpoint.
Yeah.
Weddings is a very good example, because you have a lot of these wedding videographers and photographers that come in, and there's one ad that keeps popping up right now, and they're like $1,000 for a photographer and videographer, and I'm like, holy smokes, that is not what you should be. One, from your standpoint, I get it. You're trying to get as many weddings under the belt as possible. You might be new, whatever. You're just trying to turn and burn. But you're kind of discrediting the value of the industry, right? And not only that, but, on the flip side, to the brides and grooms that are looking at that, you get what you pay for, right? If the market value is upwards of a couple $1,000s, whatever it is to your local area, right? Martinsburg's definitely going to be different than Richmond, right? But at the same idea, you kind of have to, like, that's why you got to do your due diligence of researching and seeing what. Because if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Yeah. But again, holding that value, because what the work they're probably putting in to do $1,000 for photo and video, by the end of it, they're probably not yes, they're theoretically making money, but I learned very quickly, you got to hold your time almost to an hourly rate. I don't sell an hourly rate. We have projects and how we our pricing is, unique to the project.
Sure.
But the hourly rate isn't there. And I feel like it would probably be the same thing with a comedy show. Is like you got the setup, you have the actual show itself, the teardown, then you have even long before, you have the marketing and all the things that go into it.
Yeah.
That all factors into the hourly rate, right? Of like what you're charging.
Yeah.
And, that's where I think holding that value is important.
Yeah. And not only that, is another thing I learned too, is the value of the actual comedians who are doing the show.
Yeah.
So, like
that's a whole other aspect of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I would have been ecstatic just getting paid in, gummy bears or chocolate or whatever the heck. But no, once I realized that like these folks are real, professional comedians. They take the time to work on what they're doing, and they take their time to go to the shows and book shows for themselves. They hold a value to themselves as well. So we got to make sure that we're paying these guys fairly, and making sure that their worth is being noticed and being met, because more often than not, these awesome comedians will do a show and they'll just kind of get ripped off, for a lack of a better term. You know what I mean? Just because either the person is being greedy, or they just don't understand that there's a value there, or whatever it is. But like it is with anything, you want to be treated fairly, and if you're putting in the time, you kind of want to be compensated for that or appreciated for that. So that's something we try to definitely put at the forefront of what we're doing, and make sure everybody's happy and has a good time and a good setup, but at the end of the day, going home with a fair little bit of cash in their pockets too, for doing their thing professionally. So it's definitely I've always been kind of inclined to the entrepreneurial side of life. I had to take it real slow through that one.
Yeah, that's okay.
See, I'm even messing it up the second time.
You can't go too slow.
That's fine.
And I'm not going to ask you to spell it either, so don't worry.
But yeah, no, I've always liked, working for myself as opposed to somebody else. So it's been cool to kind of bring that aspect into the comedy side, and, run things and have somebody alongside me who, has the connections and can help run things and promote things and all that stuff. So it's been awesome, man. I'm loving it. And I love performing too. I've got to do some cool stuff on, just the comedy side as well. So
yeah,
it's been awesome.
You touched on something that's very interesting, because with, the value of everything, right, and charging, I didn't think about it. And even just in our conversation, I was like, oh, that is the value of the comedian, right? And somebody that has an experience and that resume, or the credit to go behind their name, that probably plays a huge factor into it. And it's interesting to me, because I always look at stuff from, I don't want to say I'm that same entrepreneurial mindset, but I always like, and this is kind of what sparked the whole idea of sitting down with different businesses and different entrepreneurs and people that are, have their own hustle, right? Huh?
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. So that's that fourth wall. No, but it's interesting because, from our perspective, from a video perspective, it's like, what is our time worth? Because what we're doing. But then I guess we kind of get, if we were to hire talent, right, for a commercial or something, what is, if it's somebody new, you're probably going to be able to get away with paying them the bare minimum, right? Again, what they're valued at, compared to if I'm looking to try to bring in, some crazy actor who's well known in the industry. That's a little bit different. That's something where the budget's got to be there. Yeah, I guess you kind of open my eyes to where comedy, it's the same way.
Yeah, and I guess the easiest way to paint that picture is like when we produce a show, it'll usually be an opening act, a feature act in the middle, and then the headliner, which is the main act who takes up the bulk of the show. Yeah. So the opener will do say 5 to 10 minutes. The feature act will do 10 to 15, maybe 20 minutes, depending on the size of the show, and then the headliner will do 30 upwards of that. So we'll basically, the pay, and that's kind of like an understood thing in the comedy world, is the pay is kind of tiered off of those spots. So the headliner is going to make the most, the feature act is going to make less than the headliner, and the opener is going to make less than the feature act. You know what I mean?
And is that based off of like percentage of sales? I guess it depends on how the show is set up.
Yeah. Typically, it's kind of a case by case basis. Like I said, some shows will be free to the audience, and the venue will be paying the comedy producers a flat rate. Or sometimes, like for example, we'll do a ticketed show. $10 a show. Everybody pays their ticket fee, and then we'll pretty much divide that up between the comedians,
percentage wise.
Right. Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. It's interesting. It's definitely a different mindset because you're not only factoring in the time of putting on the show, but also the comedians as well, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
No, it's funny because like I'm thinking, I know a little bit about comedy. Like I'd love, like comedy is one of those, I'm the funniest person I know.
Oh,
so
yeah.
that, I don't know a lot of people. I'm just kidding. But it's one of those, sometimes I feel like my wife is like, you're not that funny, but you probably feel it too.
Yeah, I do. And I'm like, but I make people laugh in the audience.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean?
I guess if
see
you've
these
seen
shows and stuff.
Yeah, you've seen the show enough. You're like, that's not that
exactly.
funny.
She's like, this is a rerun, dude.
Yeah. No, so it's funny because the opening act, the headline, like kind of like that breakdown. I have a. So, have you? I guess this is like to jog your memory. Has there ever been a situation where somebody's like, "Oh yeah, I can be the headliner," and then they get up there and just completely just bomb, or you're like, "Well, I don't know. That would probably might not have been like." I'm assuming you pick the order, kind of strategically place people where they're supposed to be.
Yeah. So, in the very early days, it was probably like it had to have been one of the first shows that I produced through Black and White Comedy Productions. It was like at a kind of like an event venue. They did like weddings and baby showers and things like that. But I went to a baby shower there, and I liked the setup, so I was like, I think I could do a comedy show here. And so I kind of like put myself in charge with picking the lineup. You know what I mean? So I picked some folks that I'd performed with before. I picked somebody that had kind of like helped me along the way that produced shows. And then for the headliner, I picked somebody who I hadn't met before, I hadn't seen perform before, but came highly regarded. Oof. So she had the credits. I talked to a few people, and they said that she was a great comedian.
A gamble.
A gamble. I don't know why. I was just like, yeah, I guess I was just kind of in that whimsical phase of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, everything's great. Nothing can ever go wrong.
Yeah. Trust the process. Put this person on the show, and the whole show was great. The two openers that I picked did fantastic. They were local guys from Winchester. The feature act was awesome. And then the headliner came, and like it was super cool. We had like a whole green room set up in the back, so the rest of the comedians were just kind of like hanging out, but you could still hear the show. So you could hear people laughing throughout the whole show,
or not.
And then the headliner went up, and it was like the whole like feeling in the room changed. Like how you go into like an old house and you just kind of have that like heaviness, that like spooky feeling, and everything kind of just changed. So I walked back out there, and then like the venue owner is just kind of like sitting by the door, like looking at me, like looking at the comedian, like what changed here,
Yeah.
And I'm thinking the same thing. And so I just start, tuning in, and I realize that it is just not going well. Like this comedian just can't read the room, is, not backing down on like it's trying to do roast jokes, but it's just...
There's a time and a place.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that was not the time nor the place.
Yeah, it was just not like a well-disciplined act, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And everybody could feel it. Everybody could see it. I had people coming up to me after the show, like, saying the same thing. Everything was great up until the end,
Up until the headliner.
Yeah, up until like the main point of the show.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I get it. You know what I mean? It happens. But you cut your losses. And then after the show...
You've ran the other two people back up there to save face?
No, the comedian complained about not getting paid enough. They were
Oh,
well aware at how horrible
well, we didn't
the
get enough
show went.
jokes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was super transparent about how much, we would be able to pay them kind of thing. And pretty much just threw a shit fit and just let me have it. Told me I was a horrible producer, terrible lighting, didn't know what I was doing, blah, 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 blah. And that was like my first hard lesson in like who you work with and, just the whole process. You know what I mean? But I'm glad I learned that early and, it didn't spoil anything for me and I just kind of kept trucking. So, yeah, last time I worked with, I feel like if I say
You don't have to throw anybody under the bus.
it's not a name, but if I feel like if I keep saying like the person and the comedian, I feel like if I'm specific on like male or female, it might be too obvious.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
I feel like that probably just made it obvious, but it's fine.
Hey, I don't know them. I hope I don't know them. Because if I, I'm not going to say anything.
Hey, if you weren't at the show, it's fine.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that is so.
But yeah, no, that was just like, that was my one bad experience. The rest have really been awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've certainly had my moments of bombing,
I feel like that you probably hear it with every comedy podcast and conversation.
Yeah.
It comes with the territory.
Yeah, it does. It does. Especially when I was doing like the music open mic nights. Like the second one that I ever went to was like a acoustic open mic night in Shepherdstown. And I sat there for like 2 hours. I was like at the very end of the list. So I sat there for like 2 hours. People were just like, drunk as heck, ready for whatever. And I went up there and everybody was still talking. I was like trying to grab people's attention and it was just terrible. Like not a single laugh. Like I wasn't even in the room, And I walked outside and some guy came up that was in there and I guess he was paying attention, gave me some kind of like words of encouragement, so I kept trucking and kept bombing. But even now, like, I got a new job recently, so I've been kind of like not able to, make it to the shows and stuff. I'm commuting and I'm just exhausted at the end of the day. So the other day was like my first time back on stage in like 5 or 6 weeks and, just completely ate it. You know what I mean? It was bad.
I feel like it's one of those, and I kind of, I do a lot of comparison. And I feel like that's the same thing when I'm doing like podcasting. For a while, I had a good stretch of like once a week, I had people in here filming. And then with, just the holidays and then also building out the studio and business and all that, now I'm trying to get back into it. And I sat down with somebody 2 weeks ago and I like everything was on. We were good. And I was like, hold on a second.
Yeah. There's like a little bit of ring rust.
Yeah.
Like
and I was like, I got to knock this off. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that it probably magnetized when you are like up there by yourself. I feel like that it's like times 10 of like, if you stumble or you start second guessing, or what I would probably do is like, that didn't land like I wanted it to. And then I'd get in my own head and then the next joke and then it just snowball after that.
Yeah.
And then it'll probably lead to me just kind of roasting myself. Like here I am up here trying to do this and then that won't land. And then
Well, I think I've like figured out an okay way of like getting myself out of tough spots where I'm like not getting laughs, you know what I mean? Just with like my awkwardness or
just
whatever.
walk off the stage.
Yeah. Even that. But no, I feel like just with the repetitions, I've kind of gotten good at like, if I'm not doing so well, kind of switching gears or like I said, getting myself out of the hole. But this past time, it was just kind of like, I was just going through the motions and, kind of telling my jokes, but not really like feeling it, you know what I mean? So it was kind of like the first time that I felt like I may be going a little downhill with comedy.
Sure.
But, talk to people, everybody kind of experiences it, everybody goes through their ebbs and flows of figuring out what works, what doesn't, what's, I guess, the right flow for them on stage. But yeah, I beat myself up a little bit, but it's at the end of the day, like it's all for fun. You know what I mean? Like that's my main goal when I'm doing this is that I'm having fun. The comics are having fun if I'm producing a show and the audience is having fun. If that's met,
the goal. Yeah.
We can worry about money later. We can worry about bar tabs, whatever. As long as we're having fun, That's the main goal. But yeah, so it's kind of like one of those weird things lately where I'm kind of like, working a new job, like I said, and figuring out the comedy thing. So it's been like an interesting sort of recent experience with it. But
Sure.
like I said, I got a co-producer, so we're still keeping like the shows going. But I'm like, I do all like the back end stuff too. So I'll do like the flyers and a lot of the promotion and stuff while he's out there. While he's out there doing all the grunt work, hosting shows and stuff. So
somebody's got to do it, right?
Yeah. But getting back into the swing of it. Trying to find some, venues here close to home. So I'm not right now. Pretty much the only place we're doing comedy is down in Manassas. That's why I haven't been able to be so frequent with it.
Sure.
Because it's an hour away and my work is an hour away. So
driving
doing all that is just
that's a lot.
Been impossible. So love to find some local venues around here that would love to open their doors to comedy. So if anybody out there is listening,
I was gonna say, have you talked to the Bright Center?
So the Bright Box.
Yeah, Bright Box. Sorry.
Yeah, the Bright Box does a show the last Saturday of every month, a comedy show.
Okay.
And that's produced by probably one of my best buddies I've met doing comedy. But where was I going with that? Yeah, they do a show every last Saturday of the month. I've been on a couple of those shows. They're super fun. They're in like the upstairs level.
Yep.
But they've had like, touring comedians, and a lot of the times like the opening acts or the hosts are like, more local guys. But those are always super fun. But usually can't step on like other comedy producers' toes when it comes
rightfully so. There's
venues,
a rule within the rule, or unwritten rule, I guess is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So hey guys, I really hope you're enjoying this episode. I just wanted to quickly stop in and say that this podcast is brought to you by the Hustle Podcast Studio. We're located in Winchester, Virginia, and we're a full service studio for podcasting, YouTube channels, short form and long form content. We're the place you need to be. We now have 6 different bays that you can choose from. Book a time, come in with a tech to run everything behind the scenes so you can start filming content as early as next week. If you're interested, check the description below for more information. Reach out to me directly on social media and we can help you get started. Now, let's jump back to the episode. Is there a large comedy scene in Winchester? It sounds like not really, but you're kind of trying to get it kickstarted?
Yeah, there's really not at all. Like there was a few guys that like lived in the area, but we've kind of like lost touch in the past year or so. Whether it be, life getting in the way of comedy frequency with me or them, or but there's not really a scene in, like, for example, Frederick, there's a little bit of a comedy scene. They have a weekly comedy open mic night. They have weekly comedy shows. They have several venues that do that kind of thing. They have one main venue, the Cellar Door, that they've been doing comedy for like 12 years. So it's kind of like an established thing there.
So I grew up in Frederick, so I kind of
got you.
I got an idea. I don't know the comedy scene, but I kind of, it's funny. I was just there for, I don't remember what the party was but we were at a brewery of some sort for whatever reason. And as we were leaving, this was an after work thing because I work in Frederick also. Mm-hmm. So, we were leaving that, and we were leaving right to somebody doing an open mic. And I was like, man, I should go up there. I can't do it. Like, I don't know. I want to say make a fool of myself, but it's one of those where I know, like, the little that I do know about comedy is you kind of have to have like an idea, or like kind of, I don't want to say completely have everything drawn out, because a lot of it you probably feel the crowd and what works and what doesn't. You have a couple of jokes that you can kind of go. I don't know. The other part of it is crazy enough, probably standing in front of a room full of people trying to make them laugh, it probably won't go well.
Well, that's the thing too, is like, and I wish I would have like known this or heard this when I first started, but I've had the opportunity of seeing like so many first timers go up with the open mics that we host. And that's one of my favorite things, is when I go and I see somebody's name I don't recognize and I go up and talk to them and they're like, yeah, this is my first time. I figured I'd just give it a shot. But I feel like the biggest thing when you're like trying comedy for your first time is not having material, not wanting to get a laugh. It should solely be just getting up on stage and standing behind the microphone and just feeling what that feels like. You know what I mean? Like, do 30 seconds, do a minute, you know, try your hand at something, but don't focus on like the joke aspect. Just focus on like being, you know, in that weird, uncomfortable spot.
Yeah.
And then let the other stuff kind of trickle in later. You know what I mean? Yeah, I wish I would have known that the first time, because the first time I went up, I stood up there for like 10 minutes trying to reach and grab for stuff, and I'm like, yeah, you know, why isn't this working? But I would still do the same thing. You know what I mean?
I'd probably get annoyed and just start like picking people out of the crowd, not in a fun way. Just, well, you're ugly. Just something I don't know. Like I start grasping at something.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing I enjoy doing too, is like crowd interactions and just seeing
I love that back and forth. You know, just kind of almost like you're it's unique to that. You're kind of working the crowd and you're talking to people. You can get some, I think there's some comedians that it's a stretch. Like they're really trying to like.
Oh, some comedians will plant people in the audience.
Yeah. And I'm just like, all right, I can't do all that. But the ones where it's like they can really kind of roll with the punches and take what that person's saying and make it funny.
Yeah.
You know, that's where it's like, okay, that's comedy.
Yeah.
I say that because my in-laws and I and my wife's side of the family, we have this, like I said, I'm hilarious, you know, and sometimes a little sarcastic. So we have this running joke of somebody will crack a joke and nobody will laugh except for me, because it's like, I don't know. And I'm just like, that's comedy. Like that, like I'm just like, I'll point it out just to make it weird or funny, or they'll try to say something and they're like, that's kind of, I'm like, that's not comedy. Like you don't know what you're talking about. And it's just this, I think we've been doing it for a couple of years now, but it's so funny because like somebody will say something and like get like a weird reaction. I can't even think of a good example, but I'm just out of nowhere. I'm like, now that's comedy. And just make it just completely just blow it out of the water. And then now that's like the running joke. So it's, like I enjoy like people that can kind of zing, but then also kind of feel like the feeling. Like I don't know how to explain it.
Well, I've always been kind of like a smart ass, you know what I mean?
That goes
and I guess
hand in hand.
Yeah, and like I've tried to been, or I guess not. I hope not tried to, but I guess like the exchanges between my friends have always been like really witty and like, you know, roasty and that kind of thing. So. I guess I just kind of like trickled that into, you know, I try to be myself up there and not really like, I try to keep everything sort of pertaining to my life and, you know, try not to be too serious, because I have like this weird serious look about me for some reason, you know, and it doesn't help when I shave down and to a mustache and look like a, you know, undercover cop, but yeah, so it's like one of those things where if I'm just like my goofy self, you know, up there, it kind of helps, you know, take away from that. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that.
That's okay. I'll bring it full circle.
Maybe I'm going nowhere with that.
No, I'm interested. So you kind of touched on a little bit that you bring your own personal experience into it. I think that is a I don't want to say a standard, but a lot of comedians do that. How do you, I guess in your experience, how do you kind of figure out like, because there's things I think about all the time. I'm like, that would be funny to stay like, and sometimes like, nah, like I find that funny, but a lot of people probably find that extremely inappropriate, you know? So like, do you have like a way of like filtering that stuff out? You just kind of trial and error and see what works?
A lot of trial and error. Cause I mean, really the only way, like, if you're practicing guitar, you can sit in your room for hours by yourself and try to nail a song down, you know, and you can finally nail it. But doing comedy, you have to have an audience to know if you nail it or not.
But you could stand in a mirror and then if you laugh after the joke, I guess.
Yeah, but it's just to know if it works or not. You know what I mean? It's like if you fix your boat, you're not going to know if it works until you put it in the water, kind of thing. Like you can start the engine, you can go through all the things, but till you put it in the water, you're not going to know if it works. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of trial and error, a lot of like trying to keep it less observational humor and more like perspective based humor. You know what I mean? Like my own kind of experiences that I can base off of, you know, other people's general ideas and experiences and stuff. So I don't know. It's definitely like a lot of times, a lot of people will like write down, word for word what their joke is or type up. A lot of times if I just like experience something funny or something pops into my head, I'll maybe jot down a couple bullet points in my phone and then I'll just start going through.
Kind of like storytelling.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I'll maybe just put like a couple key words from the joke and then put it, it'll just stay a note in my phone. And then I'll just start writing the joke in my head. I'll go over it 1,000, 10,000 times in my head, and then I'll do it on stage. And then if it works, I'll try it 2 or 3 more times. If it continues to work, I might implement it, somewhere into my 10, 15-minute act that I've accumulated.
Sure.
And 2 or 3 times, no laughs, I'll kind of toss that one aside and go back to the drawing board. But
that's fair.
No, it's been really cool, like learning the process. And like I said, I kind of got brought into it from listening to all those comedians on podcasts talk about the whole process, getting booked on shows and the before, the after the show, and everything that comes with that. So it's just been kind of surreal to actually be a part of that. You know what I mean? And I've gotten to perform with like some of these legitimate headliners that you see on like Kill Tony or, folks like David Lucas, Hans Kim, comedy legends like Tony Woods, just stuff that you kind of, cool stuff that I just can't wait to, my kids are old enough and be like, hey, look what I did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
have you thought about doing any type of, because I know Kill Tony is pretty huge. I don't know the process of getting on stage there, but I feel like they take like the open mic night and take it to like the extreme.
Pretty much. Yes. So that's like a long-term goal / dream for me, I guess. Cause like, I think I was telling one of your producers here in the office before we started the show that my Monday night ritual is, after I put the kids to sleep, sit down, relax, have a little bit of whiskey, turn on Kill Tony. And I'll watch like, half an hour of that every night throughout the week until that's, the 3 hours of that podcast is eaten up.
Just in time for the next one.
Yeah. But I've been doing that for, probably a couple of years. I started watching it before I even started comedy. But yeah, basically like they host it now at the Comedy Mothership in Austin, Texas.
Yep.
And comedians from all around the world will go there every week, put their name in a bucket, like 200 some folks will put their name in a bucket and they'll pull random names out. You go up, do a minute of comedy, which is like
forever. It's
forever, but that's like a really short amount of time to actually like try to get a laugh out of people. So it's definitely like an interesting kind of way to see who's funny and who's not.
And then, I mean, I've watched Kill Tony a bunch.
Yeah, but like
and then they just roast the crap out of you.
You'll see people eat it and they'll get roasted. You'll see people do great and get roasted. And but like I said, like guys like David Lucas, Hans Kim, who they came through Charlestown this past year in July. I saw that they were coming. I just sent David Lucas an Instagram message. I was like, hey man, I'd love to open for you, host for you, blah, blah, blah. He finally hit me back and was like, I'll think about it. We went back and forth for a while and finally like locked it in. And but he started from just getting his name pulled out of the bucket on Kill Tony.
Yeah, same with
killing it.
Was it Matty Ari?
Ari Matty.
Ari Matty.
Yeah.
He is dude, that's hilarious.
He's become like whenever he pops up, I'm like,
yes.
Let's go.
Yeah, he's definitely it's something about just the way he hangs on to certain things and like just it's very smooth and you could tell he's practiced it, right? It's the way it's telling the story, but it's not the story itself. It's like I feel like he's one of those where he could probably say really, I don't want to say anything, but he could say a lot, but the way that he
the delivery.
Yes.
The cadence, the delivery it's definitely like those are the type of people you're like, oh, they could say anything and it'll
be funny.
Yeah. And that's where like my co-producer Ace, like he just kind of has that like cadence and that way about him where like he'll just say he'll say the F word on stage and I'll start cracking up just because of the way that he like said it and landed it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's, I feel like, sort of something in my toolbox that I don't really have. So I kind of gotta, I do a lot of like dad jokes and, I'm more of like, a lower tempo where he's like, bah, 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 bah.
He's,
But every comedian is different. So that's like one of the coolest parts about it. And so, yeah, like with Kill Tony, people can sign up and become, rock stars. Like David Lucas and Hans Kim are touring the country now just because their name got.
I mean, it hasn't even been a year. It's probably been just about a year, maybe.
I think, yeah.
Maybe
like a year, 2 years, something like that. But
very short window.
A short amount of time for you to go from like getting your name pulled out of a bucket to touring the country and selling out theaters and stuff, So being a fan of the show, it's like I said, seeing open mic people, first timers is like one of the coolest things. So if I can even do like an inkling of that and like, take somebody from trying their first time on stage with us and going about the world of comedy, like that's enough for, me to feel like, I guess my goal has been met. So yeah.
I want to go to the Mothership.
Me too.
So bad.
Me too. It's calling me.
Yeah. That's one of those, I heard tickets are like crazy impossible to get.
Oh, I've looked a couple times and I think they do like, they'll put out shows pretty much, 6-8 months in advance, and you'll have to like really dig deep to find a show that's not sold out.
Yeah.
Like it'll have to be, I think the open mic nights are free and they'll still be like sold out, past capacity.
Yeah.
Months in advance. So,
I think he said something that they're looking to maybe open another one. That would be beneficial, but I would love, I have somebody that I used to make content for. He's in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's just, if I get there, that's just one drive. I don't know how long of a drive it would be, but it's close enough to make it worth it.
That's like my sister-in-law. She just moved to San Antonio this past year.
There you go. Got to go visit.
I know. I'm like, we could stay there and then I could just drive up an hour and spend the night in Austin, blah, blah, blah. But I got a couple friends that live in Austin and they get to go to the Mothership like regularly. And I'm just like, send me pictures and you know what I mean? Tell me about it.
Yeah.
Draw it for me. I don't care.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've also always been into like UFOs and all the cryptid type stuff, and the whole comedy club is themed after all that stuff too.
Yeah.
So
the Mothership.
That's like a whole experience in and of itself. But yeah, I've also like had ideas of possibly starting a comedy club somewhere down the road, but I don't know if this locale would be the best place for it to spring.
I feel like that's one of those where you really got to do your research. It's kind of like real estate, location.
Yeah.
No, we kind of had the same thought with doing what we're doing in here is like, is this a good location? And we really kind of searched and looked around to see. And at the time, there was really nothing like it here. And then the question was, well, if there's nothing like it here, do you think it's a good decision? I was like, I don't know. But, it's one of those, I'm not going to, you can run numbers all you want, but you're not going to until you try. And then the opportunity presented itself. And we were like, all right, we got to go. So we did that. And now, for the most part, it's definitely, paying itself off. And, there's definitely things that we want to do more. Like I said, we have that whole side on that side of the wall that, we're still kind of fine tuning and finishing up. But once that's ready to go, we're going to hit the ground hard with getting it out there and letting people see it and everything. And I think it's just one of those where the biggest thing is location. I think we got a good spot.
I think so too. This is awesome. I mean, like I said, I grew up in Winchester, so like the Walking Mall was like a staple of my childhood.
Yeah.
So.
And we definitely, when we were looking, we were, like I said, before we turned the cameras on, I was on the first floor here, and, we looked and had different ventures of what we wanted to go and then this kind of appeared and we were like, oh yeah, this is, and then also the location. It's not great during Apple Blossom.
Yeah.
And I figured out during the Christmas parade, they shut all the streets down around the walk. So I was stuck here.
Well, I said Walking Mall, and I was like, I hope I didn't just give up his like top secret.
No,
location.
We want everyone to know where it is. Right on the Walking Mall, Bright Center. It's by appointment only. Unfortunately, we just want to make sure we don't have too many people in here.
Yeah.
But no, we want to put it out there because as of right now, I still think there's similar type of studios in the area, but nothing to where you can come in and kind of make it your own.
Yeah.
Sit down and have your own conversation. And we definitely, I mean, now we're up to 6 different options, different sets that you can go off of, and then not to mention a green screen, so you have more than what you could ever imagine with that.
That's so cool, man.
So it's definitely it's one of those where the option, the versatility is here. It's really just kind of buttoning up the finishing touches and then getting it out there. But kind of going back to the comedy store, that'd be interesting. That would be something I feel like you have to do a little bit of digging and a little bit of research for. But I mean, I'm a fan of it.
Yeah.
I love it, and I've been to a couple smaller like comedy shows, and I've heard, I've watch it all the time on social media. That's the biggest thing is I think the awareness of it is another
People are
one.
consuming it at like probably more than ever,
Yeah.
before, because
Yeah.
before social media, it was just like comedy albums, even just Netflix specials or specials put out on TV, whatever. But now, I mean, you're scrolling and seeing comedy clips every, 2 or 3 swipes,
Yeah.
So it's definitely cool that and I'm always finding comedians that are, well known that I've never even heard of. So it's definitely like a cool way for people to experience it and get it and find out where people are going to be at so they can see it.
Yeah.
But no, this is also something that, Ace and I have tried to bring to fruition throughout the year that we've been producing comedy shows together, is to also do a podcast under Black and White Comedy Productions. We've done a couple pilot episodes, I guess you could say, but just kind of too many moving gears for anything to really stick. But I guess the whole idea behind it, we kind of wanted to just, him and I be the hosts like we do with the shows, and then bring in these comedians from around the area, and just kind of like put the spotlight on them, talk to them, figure out, what brought them into comedy, what their life is like, stuff like that. So, hopefully it'd be something that people would enjoy, but just trying to get to that point in life where we're able to do it like consistently, you know what I mean? Because I feel like that's the biggest thing when it comes to podcasting is consistently.
Yeah. It's a lot. Same thing
keeping
with
the wheels going.
Yeah, with marketing and everything that you do.
Sure.
I mean, really, just like social media content in general is you want to be consistent. I was joking with somebody earlier today about, we essentially can be the what is it, the fitness coach of your social media content. We'll motivate you and try to get, but you got to put the work in and you got to post it. Now, obviously, there's ways that you can streamline that, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to post every day. You can use schedulers and all the fun tools that you can use. But at the end of the day is you want to be consistent, especially if you think about it as, the more people see it, the more people want to be, they see it one time and they're like, oh, it's pretty interesting. And then it keeps popping up on their feed and then you're always in their face. Well, now maybe I want to go check out a show. And then at that point, it just kind of snowballs from there.
Yep.
And then the other thing is I think especially with comedy in this area is using it as a tool to get it out there.
Yeah.
I think when people hear comedy, they think, maybe DC, they think, even maybe Richmond a little bit, but
Yeah.
they're thinking of these bigger cities, but there's no reason why you can't have some type of comedy life in Winchester,
Right.
even in, go down the road to Martinsburg and anywhere in between. It's definitely something. It might be a little bit challenging to get it going. It sounds like you're on that path already.
Yeah.
But it's one of those where there's no reason why you can't do that same thing on a smaller scale in this area and do it right and do it. Sounds like do it the right way. And,
Yeah. I mean, we were able to kind of do something to that effect in Front Royal. I forget if it was, I think it was Ace that found the venue. But it was a place right on Main Street in Front Royal, and we started doing open mic nights there. And the first open mic night we did, we had I think like 18 comedians come out and sign up,
Nice.
which is pretty unheard of for a first time open mic night. And even now with our weekly ones, we're lucky if we get, 18 folks that come out and sign up. That's a pretty long list of comedians.
With an open mic night, so like they get 10 minutes?
Usually we do about 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay.
Because,
You
gotta kind of roll through it.
And you gotta keep, that makes sense. Yeah. 5 minutes, so I feel like if especially if you're at the beginning of your comedy career, 5 minutes might be a long time.
Yeah.
It's
it definitely is. Yeah. But I mean, that's like a maximum, you know what I mean? Like
Sure.
we'll give you the light and, that's your cue to come off a stage at 5 minutes. But I mean, you could go up there and do 10 seconds, 30 seconds, couple minutes.
One dad joke and get out of there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Keep them on their toes.
But yeah, so Front Royal, we did that first one and we kept doing them consistently. And I think eventually we had like 6 or 7, maybe 8 people that had never tried comedy before. Front Royal had never had comedy or open mic nights or anything like that. And probably like 7 or 8 people that tried it for their first time, still now a year later doing comedy consistently and getting booked on shows in Arlington and DC and that kind of stuff. We're booking them on our shows now, that kind of thing.
Nice.
But yeah, like the community showed up, the people showed up. They showed that they had a great appreciation for it. We've had shows at 4 or 5 different venues in Front Royal. But yeah, kind of one of those things where it's like, they saw it, they had an appreciation for it, and they're
just
like,
gotta grow.
Yeah, and they'll still like talk to us and be like, man, we would have never done comedy if it wasn't for you guys, popping up here and bringing comedy to Front Royal, and it just warms my heart. You know what I mean?
That's the goal, right?
Yeah, and it's because I didn't really have that myself. I was doing those crazy music open mic nights, and for just kind of be able to provide that platform for them to, springboard into the comedy world, it freaking pumps me up, man. Super cool.
So what is the turnout for, you have the comedians that want to jump up there. Mm-hmm. What does it look like as far as like, maybe not specifically for Front Royal, but just the typical like night, as far as, do you start seeing you see a lot of new people coming in, or is it familiar faces kind of enjoying comedy?
It kind of ebbs and flows. Like you'll have, as far as the audience side, you'll have people that, live right around the area. So they'll come in every week and see comedy. And they kind of understand that it's, all over the place as far as like where the jokes are coming from, so it's all very lighthearted. But then as far as like comedian consistency, it kind of ebbs and flows. There's open mic nights in the area that are like well established, where they'll have to cut it off at like 20 people. Okay. Because people are just, chomping at the bit. Sure. But it all depends on the area, how well established it is, how well promoted it is, that kind of thing. But with our weekly open mic night, like I said, it's still kind of ebbing and flowing. Like some nights we'll have 3 people sign up on a weird off night. Some nights we'll have 15 people sign up and, 30 people in the audience, and it's just a blast. You know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, it's just kind of one of those things that's all over the place. But yeah. We got in March, this is like the pinnacle of my comedy production career, I guess you could say. In March, we are producing a comedy show at the Apollo Theater in Martinsburg. Okay. It's the first time they've ever done comedy since they've been open in like 100 and some years. But my uncle has performed there in acts and plays and stuff for over 20 years. And one day I just got this crazy idea in my head to do comedy at the Apollo. So I started chatting with him. He started chatting with the manager over there at the Apollo. And we just kept going back and forth. They had to get their liquor license, all this kind of stuff. And finally...
what's a comedy show without liquor?
I know. They go hand in hand for some reason, man. Yeah. It's just they're synonymous with each other. Yeah. It helps, what I mean? Especially when I'm up there bombing, I'm like, hey, get another round for everybody.
Yeah. Woo, now they're your favorite. Yeah.
But yeah, so we're up until this point, it's been like, barbecue places, dive bars, things like that. The wedding venue that I told you about that went fantastic.
Yeah. Did they ask you back?
They did, because the lady was nice, and the owner was understood that it was just kind of like one of those things, you know. But yeah, so we're doing comedy at the Apollo, doing like a big theater show. So it'll be like a big, I don't want to say who it is yet, because it's like 99% sure. We're going to have a conversation later today, but if I jinx it on here and it doesn't happen, then I don't want to make a fool of myself.
That's fair.
It's going to be one of those shows where it's like a nationally touring headliner, somebody that a household name, somebody that you've seen. So we're trying to get like some local sponsors to hop in and, help us promote the thing and turn it into something big. But it's, like I said, the pinnacle of my production career thus far, doing a theater show.
You definitely got me on the edge of my seat.
Yeah.
It sounds interesting. One, from a production standpoint, it sounds like it'd be fun. But then also I'm like, well, let me put this date on the calendar because I wanted to get out there.
Yeah. That's going to be cool, man. I just try to bring it to the people. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to make any money behind it or, I don't know. I feel like you see a lot of people in this area.
Well, you have to do stuff for the right reason. And I think if you are going into something, especially new, into a challenging field, and you're only doing it for the money, it's not gonna I don't think it's gonna land.
Yeah. And that's probably the best way of what I was gonna say.
Yeah. I think if you go into it and you're like, look, I'm gonna do this, and I would do it for free if I could. And if I can make a couple bucks on it after. I mean, that's the definition of how I got started in videography.
Yeah.
Is I was doing video game montages and wanting to get a nicer camera, and then doing the whole vlog thing. And it was one of those where I quickly learned, I was like, man, this is expensive.
Yeah.
And I'm fresh out of college. I got no money in my pocket. And I'm like, well, how do I monetize it?
Yeah.
And the heart of everything and why this show or the podcast is the way it is like, I'm not looking to monetize. I don't get monetized for this. Like, it's going to get out there to the people that watch it, and we're going to promote it into the whole thing. But, I'm not doing it because YouTube cuts me a check after.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, that's not. I'm doing it because I enjoy hearing.
Brought to you by Smartwater.
Yeah. Not yet. I'm just kidding. The email's been sent. No, I'm just kidding.
Check your email, Smartwater.
Yeah, I'm calling you out. Tag them in the description. No, it's more. I enjoy conversations. I enjoy hearing people talk about what they do, and I can talk forever. But then also, like, I enjoy videography, and it's if I could do it for free as much as I could, yeah. But at the same time, like, stuff ain't cheap.
Yeah.
You gotta. The past year, it was a lot of investing, right? And now this next year, 2025, is more of like, okay, what are we going to get off of this investment? At some point, we got to stop investing and start seeing what we can actually get from it. And, things are going great, and, everything is good, but it's like, okay, I got to do a little bit more of the monetization side of it, because, at the end of the day, it's how you keep the lights on.
Yeah. It's Hustle Productions.
Yeah. And
keep hustling.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing, is like staying true to that original reason why I started.
Yeah.
Because, you definitely get, hey, I need this done, I need that done, and very basic projects, and you're like, I kind of like it, I kind of don't, but it's, it's paying the bills, this and that. But what's the root of why I bought my first camera? Was because I love being creative. I love creating things. I love, interacting with people, and how can we just keep that at the top of mind? And there's a couple projects, same thing. I'm not going to bring them up or talk about them yet, because they're still kind of in the talking stage, but it's those types of projects that are like, oh yeah, this is why I picked up the camera.
Yeah.
As I love, whenever I can turn on the camera, I feel like I don't turn it on as much now, because running the business is now running the business.
Yeah.
But the projects where I'm like, oh yeah, this was the reason why it all started. This is the cool thing, and this is the fun, idea of what got me into this. That's what kind of drives everything.
Yeah.
And then, you got to keep that like at the center of your thought process. And then the money after, yeah, it's great,
Yeah.
obviously. But
Well, I mean, this, like, your podcast here for you is kind of like the open mic night for me. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that was kind of like your spearhead of the whole thing, as far as like keeping it fresh and fun, and you're giving people an opportunity to hop on and shoot the shit and talk about themselves or whatever their business, whatever needs to be talked about. So yeah, it's kind of like you're opening up the stage and letting people have that freedom. So it's super cool to kind of like bounce the worlds off each other and see where you're coming from.
And I do a very, I don't know if it's good or bad, but I compare a lot, not in a sense of like, oh, this is better than that, but I feel like I can like say, oh, I understand what you're saying because, and it's funny. I always like to see how different industries compare to the one that I'm in. Right. Cause like the cool thing about videography that I've learned is that you can be in a bunch of different industries without actually having to learn the industry. Like, for example, I don't know a lot about putting a comedy show on, right? How it works and all the details, but we could have a part in helping with that, and same thing with real estate. I'm not a real estate agent, but I get to see just enough to kind of give me that unique taste of it. And then on to that. And there was one day last year, it was like, I was telling my wife about it, and I went from a real estate shoot to like a drip bar commercial or branding shoot to something like, it was just like from one thing to, and it was just like, they were all just completely different things. And I was like, but I was doing the same thing, but with different industries. And that's what keeps it unique. Yeah. That's what keeps it the interest and so
well, I mean, you got to keep that perspective too. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not like anybody could just come in here and do that. So it's definitely like a lot on, it says a lot about who you are, being able to collect all those different things and process them and kind of lay them out in front of you and build, what you've done and keep adding to it. And it's because, like we were saying before, I guess in this area, it's not all the time that if you build it, they will come. You kind of have to build it and keep building it and keep building it
and adjust.
And then
fail and pick yourself back up.
Eventually, they'll come and they'll keep coming. But yeah, man, shout out to you for putting your heart into this thing, man. This is awesome, dude.
Yeah, it's just the beginning.
Yeah.
I keep saying that, but it's not just the beginning. It's been a couple months now, but there's good reason. But yeah, we're definitely, we want to get involved. And the other part of it is we want to make connections with businesses in the area. The biggest thing is like, I think in the announcement video is the first studio we were in was for us to build our business. Now this studio is for businesses to build theirs. That's right. Cool. This is, we're in here all the time. I'm using it as we speak, and I want to use every set that we build out, but I want to make it available to anybody that wants to use it. Obviously, it can't be free, but we're trying to make it as cost effective as possible because we understand that marketing is something that everybody needs, whether it be comedy or real estate or physical therapy or what, I'm trying to quickly rattle off a couple of different, but the same the core concept of marketing is there. You need to have the avenues, whether it be traditional or newer, social media marketing, it's new, but I don't think people realize how strong of a tool it is.
Well, I'd freaking eat dinner in here, man. This is nicer than my living room, brother.
no, it definitely, I like it.
Yeah.
It's funny how I guess as I kind of reveal the other sets along the road, you can tell that I have a certain style. and after this one, so we have the one behind me,
Yeah.
and then we have this one that are very similar in style, very dark, moody kind of. And then I got to 3. I was like, I got to do something different, and that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and then the next is kind of like was like, okay, let's see how unique we can get.
Well,
So
that's what I was kind of saying is like I guess the versatility that you've put into it is just kind of going to open people's eyes to being like, oh, it's not just like,
one set.
Yeah,
that
right.
everyone's
Like it
gonna
doesn't
look
have to be like a table shoot or, it can be whatever.
Dude, I got lounge chairs over here.
Yeah.
You want to nap for 90 minutes? Come on. It's be the most expensive nap you probably take, but it's there.
It won't take much editing on your side.
Yeah, that's very true.
Still shot.
Yeah.
But no, man, I think what you've done is like kind of allowed, people to kind of get a bigger perspective of what like a podcast is.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be an interview. It doesn't have to be in a certain setting. Like it can be tailored to what you want to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it sounds like there's a herd of animals running through I don't know. That's the first time I've been up here a couple months. I think they're moving stuff in there. It's not a big deal.
they escaped from the what's the kid center down the way, maybe.
Yeah, that's okay.
They have live animals in there sometimes.
No, you kind of answered my last question already. It was what's next?
Yeah.
It sounds like you guys have some good stuff coming up in March. So do you want to kind of retouch on that? Do you want to just say, hey, it's a big mystery now and we're going to leave people on the edge of their seat?
Yeah. I mean,
do you have it? Okay. What details can you share?
So pretty much it's going to be on March 8th. It's at the Apollo Theater right in downtown Martinsburg.
Stay tuned for more.
Yeah, stay tuned for more.
So that'll be a perfect plug for me to
yes.
say all of your stuff will be in the description to go
Yes.
follow.
Exactly.
And stay tuned because it sounds like, and I'm not going to jinx it because I don't want to be the one to do that. It's going to be something that it's going to be worth tuning into.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wish I could just like say the name of the person that I pretty much almost have locked in.
Please don't.
Right,
I will not allow you.
Other than that, yeah, like I said, it's, at the theater, there's 500 seats, so there's plenty of room for everybody to come. There's going to be, beer, wine, signature cocktails, that kind of thing, snacks throughout the show. But it'll be, big headlining comedian. We'll have some surprise guests throughout the show. We'll have a live DJ there for music before the show, intro, outro music during the show to make it fun. Maybe a little DJ set after the show. The sponsors will be giving away door prizes, things like that. Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah,
and
like
I said, the pinnacle of my comedy production so far. So tune in, show out. Let's have some fun. Follow Black and White Comedy Productions.
You'll have to send me everything and we'll get it linked down and
we're
definitely
trying to keep it, sporadic as far as, trying to keep it from where I live here in the Eastern Panhandle and spread it down towards the DC area and everywhere in between. So
it's good.
Yeah, man. Trying to
get them to Martinsburg.
Yeah. Martinsburg, Winchester.
Yeah. The whole area. So I live in Inwood.
The less I have to drive for you guys to come see me do comedy is ideal.
It's a win-win.
So so shorten my trip. Come see me do comedy. Let's find some places in Martinsburg and Winchester.
Grow the
that
damn
kind of thing. And
get it going.
That's the goal.
I'm all for it. I'm all for it. So
thanks for having me here to further that goal, dude.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you. I know we've gone back and forth a good bit trying to settle this out but I mean that's just the way life works sometimes.
I know. Yeah, this date works, and it's like, hey man, my kid just threw up all over me or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but we kind of both have that same kind of thing going on, externally in life. So I'm glad we got to nail it down and get to know each other and spread some info and have a good time, dude. I had a blast chatting with you, man.
Yeah, learned a lot. Especially, I kind of reconfirmed that I don't want to do an open mic, mic anytime soon.
Come on.
I feel like I don't know. It would be a good blooper reel, maybe. Just have somebody
content.
Content. Good publicity, or what is it? All publicity is good publicity. I guess I don't know about that. That's what they say. But
you think about it. Maybe we'll get you up there.
Yeah, maybe.
Like I said,
30
seconds.
Yeah, I definitely want more information about the March event because
for sure.
if it's especially in Martinsburg, like I said, I'm in Inwood, so it's a very short jump over to Martinsburg.
Yeah, and I'm always bugging the guy who hosts the shows at the Bright Box to do a spot on those shows.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for those. Those are always great comedians. Maybe you'll see me pop in there, but definitely don't come just for me.
Yeah. No. There's a variety
because I've
people.
been bombing lately, like I said. So
No, you just gotta get back up on the horse.
Yeah. No, I'm getting back in the swing, and like I said, trying to find some local places so I can get more frequent. So, heck yeah, man.
I appreciate it.
I appreciate
All
you.
right, everybody. We're good.